Numbers tell stories. I've gone through and studied the profit and loss statements, the balance sheet, the retained earning adjustments, the cash flow statements. And I've gone through and found bits of information. The department has determined that we, the franchisor, have not demonstrated we are adequately capitalized and or that we must rely on franchise fees to fund our operations. This financial analysis is presented to dispel gross inaccuracies about BAM Franchising Inc., the parent franchisor of the Bricks and Minifigs Corporation. Bricks and Minifigs has been described as a $400 million corporation, or perhaps a $200 million corporation, with $95 million in annual revenue.
You stack up 300 stores, and they're making $95 million a year. $95 million a year.
These descriptions are totally inaccurate. The actual truth is that BAM Franchising is a Chihuahua in every sense of the word. This is a small business pretending to be an enormous international conglomerate. BAM has not financed operations through operational success, but through aggressive salesmanship. BAM Franchising does not earn profits from operations, but rather it posted losses for each of the past 5 years. Joshua Johnson.
Joshua Johnson.
Joshua Johnson does not want to be on YouTube.
I don't know. I don't want to be on YouTube.
Joshua Johnson does not want you to know that he is a part owner of the Bricks and Minifigs Eugene, Oregon franchise location.
We own the Eugene, Oregon store. Well, I don't know if I want to put that out there, but
Ammon McNeff does not want you to hear this quote. Not all sociopaths are in prison. Some are in the boardroom. Ammon McNeff does not want you to watch this video that you're watching right now.
So again, as this situation unfolded,
Well, yeah, we have, I think it's about 100, we're just about to sign quadrupled our volume in the last 4 years.
there was some initial findings and discovery of like, hey, these seem to match some of the things that were being stated, but we don't have any indication otherwise.
Why did Ammon McNeff agree to do this interview?
No, the allegations are not as they are being portrayed, and we feel very, very confident in our.
Wait, not just this interview, but also this interview.
You mentioned a couple terms I want to get into, that the franchisee agreement was not honored. Does that mean you're saying Mr. Mansell was underpaid by the franchisee?
And this interview.
Because I would say yes. I would say, like, what are we talking to make this go away and not have them, go through all this? I would have, but you got to do it carefully, and I understand what you're saying. This has been on the street for a bit.
I truly do believe in integrity, and I know like a lot of people are gonna like cry foul on that, but truly I believe in the sentiment of integrity, and I truly, I believe in the sentiment of integrity, and I believe everyone should have integrity.
Sure.
And I think that, that more information that we can gather and the more that we can take a look at things, but for me to give an integritous answer and say, yes, I do this just to make things go away, that's, to me, that doesn't have integrity, because that then means somebody somewhere is getting the short end of the stick. And so I believe that people should be accountable, and people should, truly look at the situation and say, oh, well, that stuff shouldn't have happened. And they should have just, gotten together and been able to work it out and figure out what's going on and find out who ultimately was responsible. Sure. And then that person should have been, put to the,
Why? I've seen a lot of people asking that question. It does not make sense for Ammon McNeff to go on international television, international YouTube, and lie. Why? These interviews, they don't make sense. They don't make sense unless you understand what Ammon McNeff is trying to accomplish, what he's trying to do, what kind of a business he's running. I've gone through and studied the profit and loss statements, the balance sheet, the retained earning adjustments, the cash flow statements, and I've gone through and found bits of information. I consolidated all of that information first into these spreadsheets to help me summarize the information. Then I further consolidated the information into this analytical write-up. I will publish this, I will make it available, I will put a link in the description. I'll make a PDF of it. Page 11 and 12 are the complete audited financial statements. Well, balance sheet and profit and loss. I guess profit and loss and balance sheet. I did not include the cash flow analysis or the retained earnings adjustments. Those are the last two pages, page 11 and 12 of my write-up. Why did Ammon McNeff do those interviews? The reason is because of this. You see, Ammon McNeff needs franchisees to stay with Bricks and Minifigs through this crisis, and he especially needs the franchisees who have already given him $40,000 in cash, but they have not yet opened their franchise location. They've not yet had their grand opening. Those people, I don't know their names, I don't know who they are, but they are going through a very intense time right now. And I'm willing to bet that the BAM lawyers are holding their feet to the fire. I'll tell you something about the Ammon McNeff interviews. This guy has a really interesting speaking pattern with a lot of stammering involved, but also all kinds of other mannerisms and expressions on his face, a lot of eye movement. If you look and listen, you'll notice that his speech pattern is similar to Bernie Madoff's speech pattern. I've only ever met one other person who talks like this. This guy happens to be the only guy that I've ever known personally who ended up going to federal prison for fraud. There's a guy that I actually knew quite well personally here in Utah who talks just like Ammon McNeff. And he ended up being a con man. That's an interesting similarity. I got two contracts here. One is the franchise agreement, one is the area development agreement. Okay?
You mentioned a couple terms I want to get into, that the franchisee agreement was not honored.
This page is important, so I zoomed it in. This is right at the beginning of the contract. Legal Eagle covered this verbiage, but very quickly. I want to read it slowly and carefully. There are two sections, the products section and the services section. And all of that stuff is called the products, okay? Then comes the next section, the services. Additionally, franchise may also offer consignment services, comma, approved themed entertainment services, etc., 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 and all that is called the services. Additionally, franchisee may also offer consignment services, comma, approved themed entertainment services, parentheses, da 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 da, comma, approved offsite events, comma, etc., etc. That's the consignment verbiage. Ammon McNeff does not want you to know about that consignment verbiage. But then he'll say, oh, well, that's the franchise agreement, but they also have to follow the operations manual. Yeah, well, we've already caught you in like 15 different lies, so I'm sure that when we get our hands on the operations manual, we will be able to confirm that as of the time that a consignment contract was established in Keizer, Oregon, that at that time, the operations manual did not preclude consignment agreements. Pretty sure that's what we're going to find out. I've not gotten my hands on the operations manual, only the operations manual table of contents. Other important information from the franchise disclosure document. Right within the top couple few pages, there's this what to know section, what you need to know about franchising generally. Some states require registration. Special risks to consider about this franchise. Number 3, financial condition. The franchisor's financial condition, as reflected in its financial statements, calls into question the franchisor's financial ability to provide services and support you. This is to the prospective franchisee. BAM did not want to put those words in there, but they were required to by law. But wait, there's more. There are also different state-specific addenda for different sections of the different contracts. They're all worth perusing, but I found one. This is a state-specific addenda to Area Development Agreement. California, down here, the department has determined that we, the franchisor, have not demonstrated we are adequately capitalized and or that we must rely on franchise fees to fund our operations. And then it goes on to describe a fee deferral condition which applies only in California. But this statement, you'll notice that it's worded not this franchise, but we. They're required to state that the state of California has determined that we, the franchisor, are undercapitalized or that we must rely on franchise fees in order to fund operations. That is exactly the same determination I came to by reviewing the financial statements in great detail. Now it's time for the financial analysis. The first lesson I learned after I graduated from college, I learned it from a guy named Jim. He was teaching me the ropes, and he taught me this invaluable lesson, which I'm going to share with you now. Numbers tell stories. Numbers tell stories. Anytime there's a number of any kind, it's telling you a story of some sort. I think that's almost 100% of the time. The job of an analyst is to take those numbers and figure out the story. I'll give you an example. I have a receipt here from Harmon's, which is now serving as a bookmark. I'll be able to find my place again. It's okay. Now this receipt tells a story with numbers. At the bottom of the receipt, there's a number. Balance $48.97, and debit, it shows that I paid $48.97 and change is 0. But that number $48.97, well, it tells a story that that we bought a gallon of skim milk, green grapes, watermelon or cantaloupe, medium salad bar, something with pink sprinkles and strawberry something, and a Red Bull. And so, and some pineapple also. And so you add all that up, and it came to that much. Well, the story we see here is not just the total number at the bottom, but you can almost imagine me and, it was the two of us, but myself and another individual going around the store, picking out these things, finding the milk, finding the pineapples, going to the counter and checking out. And the numbers on that receipt tell that whole story. So what we want to do for financial analysis is take these numbers and figure out what's the story that actually happened to produce these numbers. We work in reverse order. We start at the end with the numbers, and then we go back and we tell the story of how those numbers got there. This is the analysis of BAM Franchising Inc. Financial analysis 2018 to 2025. Analyst is Matthew, aka Eagle Dog, at Eagle Dog 4. The date is June 13th, 2026. It's getting close to midnight, so we might be on to June 14th now, but I finished this on June 13th. Overview. This financial analysis is presented to dispel gross inaccuracies about BAM Franchising Inc., the parent franchisor of the Bricks and Minifigs Corporation. Bricks and Minifigs has been described as a $400 million corporation, or perhaps a $200 million corporation, with $95 million in annual revenue and 300 operational stores.
You stack up 300 stores, and they're making $95 million a year. $95 million a year.
These descriptions are totally inaccurate. The actual truth is that BAM Franchising is a Chihuahua in every sense of the word. This is a small business pretending to be an enormous international conglomerate. Indeed, from a financial analysis perspective, the most apt description of BAM Franchising is the Chihuahua effect. And also, some of you may have seen in comments on YouTube, the Streisand effect. If you haven't looked up the Streisand effect, I recommend finding out what that is. BAM Franchising Inc. does not have 300 stores operational, at least not as of June 2026. While it may be true that BAM has accepted cash deposits from 300 prospective franchisees, this is not an accurate count for open operational stores. The company's audited financial statements reflect 224 stores open as of December 31st, 2025, while the actual number of publicly verified open stores is around 161, maybe more. That's what I was able to find verified online. The actual number of open stores remains a mystery. The CEO's public statements about store numbers are routinely couched with qualifiers like, I think maybe we have this many stores, we opened, that kind of thing. Total revenue for BAM Franchising Inc. is nowhere near $95 million and is actually about 1/6 that amount, with 2025 gross revenue totaling $13.2 million and gross expenses totaling $13.3 million, resulting in a net loss of $67,000. Not a big loss, just $67,000. However, the company has posted net losses averaging $176,000 per year for each of the past 5 years. The company posted its largest loss $451,000 in 2022. Between 2021 and 2025, BAM Franchising's financial statements reflect cumulative losses of $878,000. BAM has not financed operations through operational success, but through aggressive salesmanship. The current operations are funded primarily by cash deposits from prospective franchisees, which is called unearned revenue, and cash deposits from customers in the form of gift cards. The main feature of the 2025 financial statements is a $2.7 million unearned revenue liability. And those are the franchisees who have made deposits, but they've not opened their stores yet. That's the unearned revenue. This corresponds to approximately 66 unopened stores as of December 31st, 2025. The unearned revenue liability, also referred to as deferred income or deferred revenue, represents cash deposits for goods and services which have not yet been delivered. These obligations include signage, marketing materials, and training, as well as associated travel expenses. Now, I've got a data table here that shows total number of unopened stores. Those are the franchisees who have made deposits but don't have their stores opened yet at year end for each of these periods. And then unearned revenue at year end. And then training expense for that year and travel expense for that year. And what we see is a correlation between the number of unopened stores, the dollar amount of unearned revenue, and the amount of training and travel expense. Taken together, training and travel expenses totaled $1.12 million in 2025, representing an increase of $427,000 or 61% compared to the prior year. Increasing training and travel expenses correspond to an increasing number of unopened stores requiring goods and services from the parent company prior to grand opening. In addition to unearned revenue of $2.7 million, the 2025 financial statements also reflect gift cards payable of $1,017,015. This $1 million liability functions effectively as an interest-free loan from the customers to the company. Taken together, franchisee deposits and gift cards represent $3.7 million of cash which BAM Franchising has received from customers and franchisees. These are the primary sources of liquidity for current operations. Summary. BAM Franchising net worth as of December 31st, 2025 is negative $621,000. As of December 31st, 2025, BAM Franchising owed $2,683,713 in signage and training to future franchisee owners, and that's what we call unearned revenue. BAM Franchising is a small to medium-sized company with negative shareholder equity. This company is similar in size and volume to a home builder which builds 20 homes per year. BAM Franchising has a strong cash position at year-end 2025 of $1,095,239. This strong cash position corresponds to $2.7 million in unfulfilled obligations to future franchisees, as well as $1 million in gift card liabilities. Current liabilities outweigh current assets. Then we got a data table, and we actually look at a ratio called the current ratio. There's a breakdown of that. So retained earnings are negative $819,000 and net worth is negative $621,000 as of year end 2025. These negative numbers are problematic, but they are somewhat mitigated by unearned revenue. BAM Franchising has a $2.7 million obligation to provide signage, training, and other goods and services to new franchisees, but the company might possibly be able to deliver these goods and services for significantly less than that amount. Therefore, we may consider ignoring the unearned revenue liability and adding the $2.7 million figure back into net worth, which would result in a positive net worth of $2 million. And this would just be for analytical purposes, not for accounting purposes. This is an analytical judgment call, which requires context. So next we look at the context, and we see net losses and decreases in retained earnings. So if BAM Franchising were to have demonstrated organizational aptitude and operational efficiency during the past 5 years, then I would recommend partially ignoring the unearned revenue liability. However, BAM Franchising's underlying operations have the general appearance of a Rube Goldberg machine. It appears that the company is scrambling to catch up with massive undelivered commitments. This is reflected by a rapid increase in operational expenses, particularly with regard to salaries and wages, also known as compensation expense. That's the compensation expense, and it just grew a lot. We expect it to grow. The company's growing. We expect it to grow, but we also expect the company to manage costs and to grow in a responsible manner. They're like, you know what it reminds me of? A Kickstarter. You guys have seen these Kickstarters. Some of them are very effective and some of them are not. Some of them, they sell this big idea. There was one that was a really cool idea. It was a helmet, a motorcycle helmet that gives you like wraparound vision and all this technology and stuff. They sold tons of those helmets, but they were never able to deliver. That's what this situation reminds me of. There's a lot of other Kickstarters that were very effective. They sold some products, but they did not overcommit. And then when they were in the process of delivering, they kept costs small and they made it work. The motorcycle guys, incidentally, the motorcycle helmet guys, they took all that Kickstarter money, and the first thing they did is they went out and rented a really fancy office in San Francisco, and then they got a whole bunch of fancy office furniture. So they had this really swag-looking environment. Yeah. That's what they spent the money on. And like company cars and like travel and meals and that kind of stuff. They were also trying to deliver on the helmet. They were not just being deliberately fraudulent as far as I know. But they had the cart before the horse. This is the cart before the horse approach. Compensation expense has rapidly increased during the past several years, representing a dramatic increase in new hires. Rapid hiring carries an inherent challenge to adequately train new employees and to develop efficient business processes. To date, BAM Franchising has not converted growth into profits. Rather, the company is playing catch-up on past commitments. Instead of carefully managing expenses, BAM Franchising is scrambling to deliver on unfulfilled promises. Therefore, I consider it inappropriate to ignore the unearned revenue liability, or in other words, I think the company's net worth is accurately described as being in the red, being negative. Federal rules requiring franchisors to report franchisee deposits as unearned revenue liabilities, those federal rules are grounded in sound principles. And I see no justification to make an adjustment in this case, even for analytical purposes. Outlook. It appears that as long as they can continue attracting new franchisees, BAM will continue to have adequate cash for operations. However, what would happen if BAM stopped adding new franchisees? What would happen if sales of these $40,000 franchisee contracts were to wane? If the company were to have strong underlying fundamentals, it would be able to weather a storm. But this company has weak fundamentals. Its operational capacity is derived from sales and not from income. This calls into question the company's ability to weather a market downstorm. If the company were to have strong fundamentals, it would be able to weather a storm. But this company has weak fundamentals. Its operational capacity is derived from sales and not from income. This calls into question the company's ability to weather a market downturn, a natural disaster, or a disease epidemic. What if there's a market downturn? What if there's a natural disaster? What if there's a disease that goes around? We used to look at this in housing like, yeah, everybody thinks the housing market's just going to go up, up, up forever. And right now it is. And it was before, back in 2005. It was just going up, 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 2006. But the responsible lenders say, okay, but what if the market turns? And the irresponsible lenders, when the market turns, they go bankrupt. The responsible lenders, they don't have to foreclose on so many properties. Rapid growth. The company's primary goal during the past several years appears to have been to grow as quickly as possible, without apparent concern for fully capitalizing this growth. BAM Franchising sold 259 franchise agreement contracts between December 2021 and December 2025, according to the company. During this time period, the company's negative retained earnings decreased from negative $442,000 to negative $819,000. Negative net worth during the same period decreased from negative $182,000 to negative $621,000. Profit and loss. Results from financial statements are presented in summary tables. In all cases, financial results correlate strongly to the number of stores. For example, franchise fee income increased from $375,000 to $2.7 million annually in 4 years, which correlates to an increase in annual store openings from 15 per year to 67 per year. The total number of open stores increased from 56 in 2022 to 224 in 2025, an increase of 168 stores, resulting in a 3x increase over a 3-year period. And here's a breakdown showing the number of stores at different stores open that year, total stores open at year end, corporate owned stores, and different information from the financials. Franchise fees of $2.7 million reflect the successful grand opening of 67 stores during the year 2025. That's a big success. That's right. They were able to realize revenue from those deposits they'd received. They were able to account for those as revenue by successfully opening 67 stores in 1 year. That is a success. A portion of this income represents deposits collected during the prior year. Yeah, some of those people had put a deposit down in 2024, finally got their store open in 2025. Other people put a deposit down in early 2025, opened their store later in the year. And then some people put deposits late in 2025, and those deposits are still sitting there. Or no, some of those guys opened their stores early in 2026. Yeah, and then they've been getting more deposits since then too. But that is a success. Opening 67 stores in 1 year that's a feat. That's a big feat. Royalty fees of $5.2 million for 2025 increased by $1.9 million, 55% over royalties of $3.4 million during 2024. This is in line with growth. So royalties have been increasing, and they got up to $5.2 million in royalties in 2025. Salaries and wages of $5.6 million represent an increase of $1.2 million compared to $4.3 million the prior year. These compensation expenses include the wages of corporate employees as well as the wages of employees who work at corporate-owned stores. Because these are consolidated financial statements, they include also income from corporate-owned stores. A separate breakdown of corporate-only wages would serve as a useful comparison to royalty fees. Even without the corporate-only figures, it's clear to see that BAM's compensation expenses have tracked closely with royalty fees during the past several years. And that's probably correlation. I don't think there's any causal relationship there. It's just the growth, and just these are two measures of growth that happen to look real similar. Actual stores opened during the year is a critical metric for this company's performance. Franchise fees in 2025 of $2.7 million represent cash received from franchisees who held grand openings that year, many of whom provided deposits the previous year. franchise fees increased by $361,000, 16% over the prior year. So in 2024 and 2025, they sold about the same number of franchise agreements each of those years. Professional fees increased continually from $246,000 in 2022 to $832,000 in 2025. While a specific breakdown of professional fees is not currently available, professional fees typically include costs primarily associated with lawyers and accountants. I think that's an important line right there. Professional fees. How much are they going to pay in professional fees this year? And that's it. Then we get to the appendix. Okay, so page 9 is the start of the appendix information. Another data table and then some notes. Cash and equivalents track with gift cards payable. This may be seen as an effective use of just-in-time financing methods. BAM has obtained an extra $1 million in cash from customers in the form of gift card purchases, which function as interest-free microloans. The gift card purchases function as interest-free microloans. If you have a gift card, a Bricks and Minifigs gift card that has money on it right now, you are basically, you gave them a loan or somebody else gave them a loan, you're holding that loan. If you go and redeem that gift card, then you're basically making them pay you back for that loan. But they'll pay you back in Lego and not in cash. Quick ratio. So in the operating agreement or the operations manual table of contents, there are several ratios listed there. I only decided to go through the effort of calculating one of them. But there's several ratios that corporate uses to look at the franchisees, the franchise stores, and see if they're operating well or if they're, what's their financial situation look like. Well, we can also apply those same ratios to look at Bricks and Minifigs. I only did one of them, the quick ratio. It's pretty similar to the current ratio, but it excludes inventory and probably, exclude prepaid expenses also. So then they got a quick ratio of, it was 0.31, but now it's 0.47 to 1. And typically we want to see a quick ratio of 1.0 to 1 or greater, 1.2, 1.3, somewhere in that range. If it's 0.9, 0.8, that's usually okay too. It depends. It depends. But these guys have a quick ratio of less than 0.5 to 1, and that's usually a red flag. In order to cover its obligations, and then this underscores the principal finding of the current analysis, an underlying lack of retained earnings and a business model which is based on sales, not profits. In order to cover its obligations, BAM Franchising must continue selling expensive franchise contracts, or else it will need to recapitalize with loans and investments. BAM Franchising does not earn profits from operations, but rather it posted losses for each of the past 5 years. And that's it. And then we get to just the detailed spreads right there. All right, that's it. That's it for the financial analysis. Area development agreement, franchise agreement, consignment verbiage. Sales, they're based on sales, not profits. And that doesn't mean that some businesses run that way and they just somehow they end up holding it together. But it's like the horse is chasing the cart. It keeps going like that. It gets real difficult. All right, what else we got here? Okay, and there's another thing about their sales tactics. So I'll get into the next thing also. So the best resource that I've found so far, and I didn't find it thanks to commenters and people who made some chat comments when I was doing a live stream while I was creating this financial analysis. There's a person called BJCLiveShow. BJCLiveShow on YouTube, but also she created a Reddit because she needed a place to share and publish. Because on the Reckless Ben Reddit, the moderators, they got too much going on. They have to delete everything. You really can't go on there and post anything unless you've already been in that community for a long time. So if you have useful technical details, documents that nobody else has seen, this is the place to do it, because she's set that up as a place where kind of internet detectives and internet sleuths can interact and find her information. She's provided the most in-depth legal analysis. She's an attorney, as far as I know, from Louisiana. And I'll be hanging out in that Reddit or those subreddits or whatever they're called. BJCLiveShow. Thank you for the detailed legal analysis, BJCLiveShow. Additionally, if there are any accountant YouTubers out there, this is a call to action. I would love for you to take my analysis and pick it apart and tell me what I did wrong. Tell me what I did right. Tell me what I did wrong. Tell me where you disagree. So BJCLiveShow, she went in and investigated all this other background information about Ammon McNeff, Matthew McNeff, their father, Daniel McNeff, their big family. They have 8 siblings, 8 kids and 2 parents, so 10 people in that family. Well, if you dig around in there and you go back, and there's a thing called Legally Mine LLC, and then you go back farther, it seems that it wasn't even the father, Daniel McNeff, who taught these kids these aggressive sales tactics. It was a guy named Mitton. Mitton, that's the last name of this guy. He's an old timer. He's passed away now. And he was basically a snake oil salesman who would sell just prepackaged documents, just kind of blank contracts to doctors, but he'd charge them $40,000, $50,000 for a document they could have just looked up at the library. That was back before the internet. I would love to get my hands on some old videotape recordings of this guy Mitton doing his sales training techniques. But the Daniel McNeff was involved in businesses with this Mr. Mitton. Meow. Oh no, not you, Mr. Mittens. The other Mr. Mitton. Yeah. Mr. Mitton is an influential figure and seems to have started all this asset protection sales business and then brought Daniel McNeff in on it. It seems that Ammon McNeff was involved in that business and Joshua Johnson as well. I'm going to put a link in the video description about, there's a company that is run by Mitton's children and like Successors. Mitton created a company which is still out there selling these overpriced asset protection packages. They do high intensity sales seminars similar to the people who sell the timeshares, but in a bigger auditorium with more people. And anyway, they got their high pressure sales technique figured out. I will put a link in the description to the Mitton Successors, one of their videos, so you can see what kind of sales tactics they're using. And thank you to BJCLiveShow for helping me to identify that connection. Okay. So then let's talk about July 4th, American Fork. I'm not able to set up a protest. I don't really want to protest anyway. I don't like chanting. I'm not really into chanting that much. It's not that I've never participated in chanting. I'm just not a huge fan. What I'm going to do is I will be participating in a service project. I'm organizing a service project on July 4th in American Fork, and the service project is picking up litter. So I'll be walking around town, hanging out all day July 4th, most of the day July 4th. I don't have a specific schedule yet, but I will be in American Fork on July 4th, participating in a service project, picking up litter. But I will also be carrying signs and holding up signs as well. I will be protesting, but not as part of a large event, but part of my own personal expression. Now, my plan wasn't, by the way, 99% likely I'll be there. I don't know, something could happen between now and July 4th, but unless something wild happens, I will be there in American Fork on July 4th. Now, I've been working on my sign. My idea was to have a sign that says, "The world is watching." And I feel like that's a message that I would like to convey to the people of American Fork. So I got working on my sign. I've been doing some work on it. And, I was kind of figuring out how the space would be, for "the world is watching." This is my first draft, how it came out here. It's not exactly how I was planning, but sometimes your feelings have to go into the sign too, Secret combinations. What are secret combinations? Then I was like, well, let's keep trying. We can do a little bit better than that. Come on now, here we go. World is watching. Apostasy. What does apostasy mean? If you know what apostasy means, if you know what secret combinations means, then you have been called. Many are called, but few are chosen. You have been called to make a comment in the comment section and tell the people of the world what apostasy means. Apostasy is a concept which is explored in great depth in a book called the Book of Mormon. The story that unfolds in this book, the Book of Mormon, the story which is highlighted and underlined here in this book, all the nuggets of wisdom in this book, it's all about apostasy. Oh, there's some pictures here I can show you. Look. Apostasy. I'm going to show you about apostasy. It's got a picture right here. I saw it. There's, at the end of the apostasy, there's the guy collecting the records, the record keeper. Oh, this one's the Jaredites. That's a whole different thing. That's a fun story, though. It also has an apostasy element to it. I wonder if we can find King Benjamin. I think there's a... Oh, there's when Jesus visits the Americas. Yeah, look, that's it. King Benjamin. No, he's not the king. No. Benjamin the prophet. Not King Benjamin is back here somewhere. This is Benjamin the prophet, different Benjamin. Benjamin the prophet went when these people had apostatized. They had apostatized, and he went and told them, hey, you guys, what you're doing is wrong. That's corrupt. That's immoral. And then they all were shooting arrows at him, and he was up on top of the wall telling them that they need to repent because they were in a state of apostasy. But then the arrows, the prophet Benjamin was protected from the arrows, and the arrows went past him, and none of the arrows hit him because he was protected. That's a little insight into the word apostasy, but there's going to be somebody that's going to leave a comment down there that'll give you a much better explanation. Beyond that, I'm not going to be making any more videos on this topic until at least into July. I do plan to do a live stream on July 4th. I have no idea how that will turn out. I'm completely new to live streaming. I just barely figured out how to even like get comments, to see the comments of the chat, to see the chat while I'm working. So I'm new to all of that, but I will try. I'll do my best. Between now and then, I have court on July 6th, and that's why I'm not going to be trying to make videos and stuff between now and July. I have to prepare my own documents and my own formal complaints and make my own phone calls and do my research for my stuff. While I'm doing that, I'm going to be, it's not multitasking, it's making like, like I made 2 signs real quick. I didn't have to, I did these like, within an hour or something. I'm going to be working on my formal legal papers. I will also be writing a formal complaint of judicial misconduct with regard to Judge Tony Graff. Judge Tony Graff Jr. has violated the Utah Supreme Court Rules of Professional Practice, Rule 2-2.9. I'll show you guys that. Let's see, right back there. The Utah Supreme Court Rules of Professional Practice, Rule 2-2.9, regarding ex parte communications. Utah Supreme Court Rule 2-2.9. If you look that up, it'll tell you about ex parte communication, and you'll just see that this judge just said, well, we'll just ignore the rules for today. We'll just pretend the rules don't exist. Because nobody's ever going to write a formal complaint about this, because nobody in the world knows how to do that. Until now. That's what I'm going to be working on. Judge Tony Graff is the guy who, in an ex parte communication with BAM franchising attorneys, just completely violated the law and desecrated basic rights of a defendant and basic rights of a citizen. So I'm going to be submitting a formal complaint about that. Anyone can submit a formal complaint about rule violations. You don't have to be a party in litigation that involves that judge or that lawyer. If a lawyer is known to violate court rules, anyone can submit a complaint about that attorney. If a judge is known to have violated court rules, anyone can submit a complaint about that. How to submit that complaint is very difficult and it's complicated, and that's what keeps people from doing it. But I'll be doing that, and so sometime probably in July I'll be able to show you the results and show you what that looks like. Thanks to everyone who has watched these videos and made some comments. I have gone through and read the first 300 comments from the first video I made about Ben Schneider, and there's lots of useful information in there. Someone brought up the fact that in addition to falsification, now I'm still pursuing falsification complaints against Joshua Johnson and Brandon Best. Also, I'm adding to that falsification complaints against Ammon McNeff. Additionally, someone brought up, what about swatting? Swatting is illegal in Utah, and swatting is exactly what those guys did. So that's also a crime. Obstruction of justice, additionally, I believe, is a crime that those guys probably committed. I'll have to review the statute more carefully and look at the body cam footage more carefully. Lady Wolverine 9, thanks for being awesome. New friends that I've made, Dan, Louisu, there's another one. Okay, I can't remember everybody's name right now, but there's a gentleman named Ha Stanley from Australia. I missed him in the chat when I didn't know how to do the chat, but thanks for saying hi. Wish you the best. Okay, and I have not looked at any comments for the video, the second video where I did the music. So I decided not to review comments because that takes like a day, for me at least, the way I do it. I responded to like probably 50%, 60% of the comments in that first video. I want to make sure to, there's so many good tips, there's so many good insights. I want to make sure to be present in that communication. And therefore I've waited until I finish this video. Now I've recorded it, I'll edit it, I'll upload it, and then I will review the comments from that second video. And then my only next thing is I'll be planning to do a live stream on July 4th. I might do some other live streams between now and then, but I don't plan on it. Thank you, everybody. Really appreciate y'all. My name is Matthew. We'll see you later.
Is yelling at me going to get you an apple? Ask nicely.